Now let's talk about the business case. The business case is a very important document in project management because it precedes the authorization of the project. Follow me to page 30 in none other than your favorite book, the PMP Guide. It says on page 30, the project business case is a documented economic feasibility study. Those are the magic words: economic feasibility study. There are many things that the business case does that no other document in project management does. And I'm going to show you a few of these. Go to page 31. First of all, it lists out the business needs. It determines what is prompting the need for this project. It says situational statement documenting the business problem or opportunity to be addressed. Identification of stakeholders affected. So right off the bat, even before your project charter is created, you've begun to identify the stakeholders that this project will impact. It also states identification of the scope. There's a lot of stuff in this document. Go into the next set of bullets, it says an analysis of the situation. Then it goes further to say identification of organizational strategies, goals, and objectives. This document enables you link the business objectives to what is at hand. Why are you trying to do what you want to do? Because it links to X, Y, Z objectives in the firm. The organizational strategic goals. It says identification of root causes of the problem or main contributors of an opportunity. Gap analysis, identification of known risks, identification of CSFs, critical success factors, and identification of decision criteria. So if you're working in an organization and projects are being authorized without sensible consideration, you need to introduce them to the business case. Let everyone make a case for the project. Why should we care? Why should we embark on this? Some organizations find themselves working on duplicate projects or even white elephant projects, projects that shouldn't even be authorized. No one is stopping them. Why? There is no gating process. There's no business case. Introduce a business case and it will definitely solve a lot of problems. Now, beyond that, on your exam, if you are taking the professional exam called the PMP exam, this could be a key part of your questions in the initiating process group. You got to know the business case. One more thing that you need to know if you are taking this exam is on page 30 as well, figure 1-8. What precedes the business case? It's the needs assessment. Take a look at figure 1-8, study that up, and as you go into the exam, just be prepared to face anything. The second project document that every project manager should be aware of these days and have in their gig bag is the benefits management plan. The benefits management plan is number 2 because it precedes the development of the charter that actually authorizes the project. So before you jump into that project, you want to ask yourself, why are we doing what we're doing? 1. 2, what are we going to gain from it? So I already addressed why are we doing what we're doing in the first video. This video addresses the benefits of the project. Have you ever realized that some projects are authorized? It's a home run in terms of the deliverable being created and handed over, but no one is using the deliverable. That is what we seek to study today. So follow me to page 33. And in page 33 of the PMP Guide, you see the Project Benefits Management Plan, also known as the Benefits Management Plan. What does this plan do? The summary is this. It gives you a blueprint for managing the benefits to make sure that those benefits are harnessed and realized. Let's read very quick on page 33. It says the project benefits management plan is the document that describes how and when the benefits of the project will be delivered and describes the mechanisms that should be in place to measure those benefits. In other words, what are the benefits to start with? How will they be realized? When will they be realized? How will they be measured? Who is going to be responsible for measuring them? How do we know when the benefit has been realized? Questions such as that. So if you take a look at the bullets on page 33, you've got target benefits. That is the expected tangible and intangible values. You may ask the question, what exactly is the PMI referring to here by these intangibles? Let me show you a few of these. Follow me to page 7, still in the book. I call your favorite book. Really quickly on page 7, what do you see? Examples of tangible elements include monetary assets, stockholder equity, utility, fixtures, tools, market share. Why do we call these tangible? We call this tangible because it can be measured. We can take a look at the market share in the mobile phone space and find out, what does Apple own? What does the Android space occupy? Or getting more specific, mentioning other names I don't want to go into. But going into the next set of bullets, examples of intangible elements, those that you cannot measure that easily: goodwill, brand recognition, public benefit, trademarks, strategic alignment, and reputation. Those are some of the benefits. Those are some of the reasons we authorize projects. But the question is, are we really realizing those benefits? In order to realize those benefits, page 33 is telling you, 1, target the benefits, know what they are, have some idea of what that is. I was speaking to a PM a few weeks ago, talking about benefits in the firm. And the PM said, Phil, the only benefits we have here is revenue. And I said, that goes in line with the PMI's talk about these benefits. As you can see here, it says financial value is expressed as net present value. What do we call the benefit cost ratio? It's the ratio of benefits or revenue, which goes to show you benefits don't necessarily have to be always revenue. But in a lot of companies, it is revenue. In other companies, it could be those intangibles. Second bullet says strategic alignment, how well the project benefits align to the strategic business objectives. Time frame for realizing the benefits. When are we going to realize them? We need to realize this in the next 4 months. If we don't, the project is almost as good as a waste. Benefits owner needs to be realized or recognized, metrics to measure the benefits, assumptions, the factors expected to be in place or to be in evidence, and the risks of not realizing the benefits. This is a key part of project management today. No wonder anyone taking this exam called the PMP exam should be well aware of the benefits management plan. Number 2 on my list of must knows for the exam. The project charter. This is the third important document on my hit list as you get ready for your exam. Now, the project charter needs no introduction. There are many things that we know about it, but there are certain things we don't know about it. In order to do great on the PMP exam, and in order to do awesome on your projects in the real world, you should understand what authorization of a project really means. It is preceded by a business case and a benefits management plan, and it is building upon those two to highlight the most important pieces of these documents and to put them all together and further add clarification as to what the critical success factors for the project are. We would call that the success criteria. So why don't you follow me to where this is? Well, let's go to page 81 in your favorite book, the PMP Guide. Page 81, all of those bullet points under 4.1.3.1, they are all important. Take no prisoners. Don't let any one of these go free. All right? Project purpose, measurable project objectives, and related success criteria. High-level requirements, high-level project description, overall project risk. Overall project risk. You got to understand that. Go to the risk chapter and understand the difference between individual risks and overall project risks. That is important. Summary milestone schedule, pre-approved financial resources, key stakeholder list. A lot of people think a stakeholder list means a stakeholder register. It does not. So make sure you pay close attention to each one of these. What constitutes project success? Project approval requirements. Who decides the project is successful? Project exit criteria. Assign project manager. Name and authority of the sponsor. A lot of stuff. But did you know that part of the developed project charter process that a lot of people forget about is on the page staring you right in the face on page 75. Let's take a look at page 75. It says, the key benefits of developed project charter are that it provides a direct link between the project and the strategic objectives of the organization. Does that sound familiar? Definitely. You heard this in the first episode. If you've not watched that video, watch it, because the business case is the actual source where you begin to see the ties of the strategic business objectives to this endeavor, yet to become a project in the business case. Now it is becoming a project because this authorizes it. It is no longer a candidate going through the gating process. It is now about to become a project. So the developed project charter process is a very important one. Someone says, Phil, why should I have a charter? We already know what the project is about. You may know. What about your team members? What about people, stakeholders who need to be involved in the project? Your project charter is the easy flyer to give. It's a summary of what the project is all about. It could save you a lot of phone calls, a lot of unnecessary conversations. Have a project charter, and for your exam, definitely know what comes along with it by virtue of the outputs. But that's for another video. See you in the next episode. The project management plan. My, oh my, what can I say about this? This one is a very, very critical document for any project. People often refer to this as a project plan. Now, some people incorrectly refer to Microsoft project schedules or Primavera schedules as the project plan. No. The project management plan is a collection of several subsidiary plans, several smaller plans. These are talked about on page 89, or I should say itemized. The real place to begin reading the story is actually page 86, 87, 88, and boom, you hit 89. Now, on page 89, you can see the project management plan components broken down. You can see the project documents broken down. Now, I have about an hour of audio that goes into page 89. You can find that on Praizion.com. This is going deeper into these components and their relevance in the project management plan, and how you should not be sidetracked with the juxtaposition of project management plan and project documents. There's no correlation between the items listed from 1 to 18 on page 89 of your favorite book and the numbers on the other end. Okay? So when you're taking a look at this, you need to realize that the focus for project management plan is just that. Don't look to the side at project documents. What do you need to know about this for your exam? For your exam, you need to know every single component listed from 1 to 18. Now, when it comes to the development approach, you need to understand the intricate differences between iterative and incremental. How frequent is the delivery? Throw in predictive. What are the commonalities between predictive and iterative? What does iterative, incremental, and agile all have in common by way of development approaches? That needs to be understood as a tiny part of your project management plan. But this is a big, huge collection of several subsidiary plans and baselines. Now, the last thing I want to point out to you are items 11 and 12. People often get this totally confused. In fact, they're lost. I get the question, Phil, where does a change management plan come from? Where does a configuration management plan come from? It comes from the process known as develop project management plan. It is in that process that you develop the overarching plans for how to manage changes to documents and plans and how to manage change to any deliverable, sub-deliverable, as far as the features and functions or specs, if you will, are concerned. So if you are wondering, where do these come from? Understand it as this. Items 11 and 12 come from develop project management plan. If you're looking to get certified, you're looking for training and coaching, you know what to do. Go to Praizion.com. Praizion, spelled the same way you see over there, Praizion.com, and sign up for one of our training programs. It will greatly enrich your studying. See you in the next episode. Are there some project documents that you would like to see discussed? Have you become a raving fan as a result of certain project documents that you've used? If you have, I would like to know which ones they are. And perhaps we could create a video to feature that special document or tool that you found to be useful. Today, we're talking about a tool I have found to be phenomenal in managing projects, software projects. Now, before we get into it, let me excuse my loose language by calling it a tool. This is actually an output of the collect requirements process. It's called a requirements traceability matrix. The requirements traceability matrix is a document that tracks requirements to their origin. It could also be used to track, as I used it, requirement to use case, priceless. Requirement to test script, even better. Because as we began to test the software, we were able to link each requester of a requirement to that specific test. We got them to test their requirements, and we had another field that tracked the requester to a signature, electronic or otherwise, to signify that they had signed off on those deliverables. Awesome tool. Well, output to be PMBOK compliant. Now, let's take a look at that particular section in the PMBOK guide. Follow me to the outputs of 5.2 on page 148 and 149. It says the requirements traceability matrix is a grid that links product requirements from their origin to the deliverables that satisfy them. The implementation of a requirements traceability matrix helps ensure that each requirement adds business value by linking it to the business and project objectives. It provides a means to track the requirement throughout the project lifecycle. Pretty remarkable. The project that I used this on the most had so many requirements coming out of the woodworks, we needed something to keep them straight. So we used a requirements traceability matrix in Excel to track these 127 different requirements and map each of them to the requesters that asked for them. It was an invaluable way of keeping our project straight, making sure that we had accounted for all of those requirements and testing each requirement, getting sign-off, getting buy-in that indeed that deliverable, that software implementation was good to go. Without the requirements traceability matrix, we would never have been able to do it. Page 149 has an example of this. It's got a requirements description and many other fields. However, one thing it is missing, in my opinion, is the source. Who did it come from? And this is one of the most valuable pieces of the requirements traceability matrix. So if you're getting ready for your PMP exam and you're wondering, what is the relevance of this versus requirements documentation? This is a summary. There are many projects where you will not track a requirement to a requester. You'll not track a requirement to its origin, but you definitely will capture those requirements. Let me give you some examples of these on page 147. These are called requirements documents. The catchphrase for anything that falls outside of requirements traceability matrices could be bucketized under requirements documentation. These are requirements in a different form, but again, it provides valuable insights as to how the requirements meet the business need. So if you go to page 148, it itemizes the types of requirements that such a document could capture: business, stakeholder, solution, transition and readiness, project requirements, quality requirements. Not every project uses an RTM, even though I've listed it as one of my favorites. And a must know for the exam, bear in mind there are a lot of organizations that do not use this. Okay, I hope you found this to be useful. Remember, requirements exist in many other forms, and in the second phase of these discussions, we'll be talking about one of them. Not immediately, but eventually. We'll be talking about user stories. User stories are great, but so is the RTM. See you in the next episode. This one, number 6, is by far one of my favorite. I won't call it a tool this time. One of my favorite instruments of project management. It's called a lessons learned register. Now, in your firm, you need to push this. Why? Because if you're not collecting lessons learned, one, you're going downhill, as in to the dark zone of ignorance across the firm. And secondly, you're hemorrhaging equity, sweat equity. Why would Joe, working on a project in New York, have made tremendous mistakes, huge mistakes, And I, the project manager in LA, 3 months later, is making exactly the same set of mistakes. Why should that happen? It is happening in many firms because they do not espouse the digital nervous system of lessons learned, to borrow a phrase coined by Bill Gates. When I think of a digital nervous system of lessons learned in New York should be able to permeate all of the other offices by virtue of sensible knowledge share using a process in this book called Manage Project Knowledge. What is Manage Project Knowledge? Manage Project Knowledge, a process where this lessons learned is created, is concerned primarily with two things. One, the creation of new knowledge. In other words, lessons learned on the project. You're creating knowledge regarding that. What kind of knowledge? Good practices, home runs and wins, things that you did well that you should absolutely be doing on every project. Secondly, you want to capture those things that you should never in your life, in a million years, catch anyone in the firm doing. Now, the problem with a lot of firms is they have some lessons learned document, but no one is using that knowledge. It's like having a pot of gold, sitting on the pot of gold or digging a hole and throwing it in and forgetting all about it. That is what lack of the execution of the managed project knowledge process could do. So for you project managers, whether you are preparing to take a professional exam from the PMI or not, you should be managing project knowledge. You should be identifying the great minds present on the project, and you should be a catalyst, an enabler of knowledge creation. And then you want to harness that knowledge. Put that knowledge in the lessons learned register. But like I said, that is not what a lot of people struggle with. What a lot of people struggle with is the use of the knowledge. So follow me to chapter 4 in integration and page 98. Manage project knowledge. Let's read it. It says, manage project knowledge, where this is created, is the process of using existing knowledge and creating new knowledge. Did you see that the use of knowledge came first? It is important to use what exists. Be aware of what exists. You might be reinventing the wheel, so be aware of what exists and then create new knowledge afterwards to achieve the project's objectives. But not just that. Watch the follow-on statement that a lot of organizations are missing. And contribute to, it didn't say project learning, organizational learning, organization-wide. People are hemorrhaging value, hemorrhaging sweat equity because they are not harnessing and utilizing the lessons learned. They have a very poor system or no system. They dump them in Word docs that cannot be well searched, cannot be well cataloged, and often go into a black hole. I was training a firm a few weeks ago. They said, Phil, this is one of the areas we do the worst in. We're good at what we do, but we're horrible when it comes to sharing these lessons learned. Collecting them isn't the problem. We do need a tool. Do you see? A lot of firms have this issue. Now, if you're getting ready for the exam, you got to know that the lessons learned registers across many different projects are going to be funneled ultimately into the lessons learned repository. Were you aware of that? The lessons learned repository is an organizational process asset update. So in closed project or phase, if you are aware of the PMBOK guide, that is where the lessons learned ultimately go for archiving into the lessons learned repository, and ultimately it becomes part of the OPAs into the organization's corporate knowledge base, if you will. You got to understand the flow. Now, before we go, there are two important tools that are used to create this. Let's call them techniques. There are more techniques. The first one is called knowledge management. Connect who has the knowledge to who needs it, people to people. The second is information management. Connect the information and the person who needs it. Connect the person to the information. Where does the information reside? In a library somewhere. Where does knowledge reside? In people's minds, the great minds. So as a project manager, you want to marry up the mind that has the knowledge and the hungry mind that needs it. Communities of practice, networking, forums, those are ways. Interest groups, get those people to meet, to sync up. That's how tacit knowledge is shared. The knowledge that is hard to convey, that is the forum for it. Explicit knowledge can be readily codified and put into a library, an information system. And that's where information management comes in. So as a PM, your job is to connect people to knowledge, connect people to information, get those great minds to synergize. For your exam in closing, pay close attention to the flow of the register, lessons learned register, into the lessons learned repository, and also the oddity of deliverables appearing here. What you do need to remember, deliverables is an input here because deliverables is a catch-all for many different things, some of which could be project management plan components, and some of which could be knowledge-oriented deliverables that are not particularly discussed in this process. I'll see you in the next video. This next one is a very rare document to find in many organizations. In a lot of the firms I've trained, I asked the question, do you know what a project scope statement is? And they incorrectly tell me, yeah, we know what that is. You call it an SOW. No, it's not a statement of work. Oh, what is it? And that's when I tell them about Andy George. Who is Andy George? Just search on YouTube, Andy George chicken sandwich. And if you get to his video because of me, say Phil sent me to you. He'll be pleasantly surprised to know his video is being used to underscore the importance of a project scope statement. In Andy's video, there's a concept of how to make anything, everything, including a chicken sandwich, from scratch. How do you make a chicken sandwich from scratch? Now, imagine a stakeholder saying, I want a chicken sandwich as my deliverable. That's the project, create me a chicken sandwich. And you go away and say, okay, we'll create you a chicken sandwich. Okay, so you want some mayo, you want some lettuce, you want the chicken. Okay, we'll make it. Then, just as you are about finishing this chicken sandwich, there's a walkthrough, there's an audit. And the customer comes by your site and is horrified to see what you're doing. You are using certain ingredients, condiments that are certainly not what the customer wanted. What did the customer want? A chicken sandwich made from scratch. Instead, you went to the local store and bought all these condiments. Customer says, no, 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 no. I want the lettuce grown from scratch. I want the chicken farm raised, fresh. Sorry, Peter. I want the bun for the chicken sandwich baked, made from scratch. I want the ketchup made from scratch. And you, the performing organization, oh my gosh, what have we done here? We have started a project without a project scope statement. What does the project scope statement do that other documents do not? Where do we even start from? First of all, the project scope statement outlines exclusions and inclusions. It also goes back to hash out those constraints and assumptions in the assumption log to identify if any is missing, are missing. At the end of the day, it is an end-to-end discovery of what exactly needs to be done to deliver that deliverable. The chicken sandwich goes through a product analysis, and that is when you analyze from a 360-degree perspective everything that that deliverable is meant to have. Leaving no stone unturned. What should it look like? What should it feel like? What should it taste like? What are all of those other features and functions that should be in it? And how are we going to make this a reality? How are we going to make this chicken sandwich that the customer wants custom from scratch? It's then, as you're creating this project scope statement, that you begin to realize we're definitely going to need a trip to the Atlantic Ocean. That is to get salt water so that we can evaporate it to get salt. It all has to be from scratch. We need to grow a vegetable patch. We need to bring in a cow so we can milk the cow to get milk for the mayo. We also need to rent a boat. We also need to grow the lettuce. Long story short, Andy George realized it would cost $1,500 to make a chicken sandwich from scratch versus 10, 5, maybe even less dollars to go into the local store, buy the condiments and throw it together. Because you need to cover all your bases and make sure you know the exclusions and inclusions, you need the project scope statement. You do. A lot of firms are wasting time and money by not accounting for the inclusions and exclusions and not doing a product analysis. So they discover too late what they created isn't what was needed. Have you ever seen that comic strip? What the customer said they wanted, what they really wanted. Huge disconnect. How the project manager understood it. You ever seen that comic strip? Google it. What the customer really wanted. Cartoon, comic. You should be able to see that. So all of that to say, this document, the project scope statement, is invaluable. And if your company is involved in a lot of predictive project management, predictive life cycles, and they are not using this, it is unfortunate that they are not using it. 5.3 is where you can get all of this. But I want to show you on page 151, if you're taking the PMP exam or any of the PMI exams, let's read. It says, Since all the requirements identified in the collect requirements process may not be identified in the project, may not be included in the project, the defined scope process, watch this, selects the final project requirements. Wow, did you know that? I'm dropping some gold for you and I want you to highlight it. Go read up that entire thing. It says this process where we create this document selects the final project requirements from the requirements documentation. Now, if you watch the previous video, you see I talk about requirements traceability matrix versus requirements documentation. It's very clear. You can see for yourself that this will take the requirements documentation and filter it to get the final requirement set. It then goes further to say it then develops a detailed description of the project and product, service, or result. And that is what your project scope statement does. I wish I had more time to go into much more detail, but if you take a look at page 154 and 155, you can begin to see the differences and similarities between it, in other words, the project scope statement, and things like the project charter or any other document you may be getting muddled up. This is invaluable. Let's read. Some of the things in the project scope statement are product scope description. It progressively elaborates the characteristic of the chicken sandwich, of the product, of the deliverable. It says deliverables. It outlines everything about the deliverables in great detail. In some instances, it could be a summary description. So bear in mind that this document, though the payoff would be great if you needed to go into a lot of detail, on some projects, high level is sufficient. So you got to tailor your application of this. Then it says acceptance criteria. Bear in mind, acceptance criteria is different from approving authority, and that is also different from critical success factors or project success criteria. You got to keep all these terms straight. And that's why you can see the project charter on page 155 next to the project scope statement, because sometimes people get these terminologies mixed up. And if you're taking the exam, the best I can say is read the detail. If you are looking to take the PMP exam and you're looking for training and coaching, you like live coaching, you like this delivery method where it's as though you are right with me, right here in the studio with me, you need to go to pmsucceed.com, because right now we have 35 hours of live training exactly like this, where you can ask questions and converse with your trainer and coach for the PMP exam. I encourage you, check out pmsucceed.com. And also, if you prefer studying self-study, but you enjoy this delivery, go to Praizion.com. Praizion.com, as it's spelled over there, here, somewhere on the screen. Make sure you sign up for the self-study training. I think you'll greatly enjoy it. Thank you. It's your friend Phil here, just trying to help someone who needs a little bit of encouragement in their project management. See you in the next video. It is often said the project manager spends 70 to 90% of the time communicating, but what does this actually mean? It means that the project manager spends a lot of her efforts on putting together plans and documents to help
guide the project, but this is done with a lot of communication. Part of communication involves communicating with superiors to provide responses to requests, to keep them informed, to solicit help, communicating with peers to share ideas for improvement, coordinate activities and provide assistance, communicating with subordinates to issue instructions, to persuade and sell, and to appraise performance. But communication goes far beyond that. Communication involves selecting the proper medium, timing the transmission, seeking and giving feedback, listening actively, and being sensitive to the sender. There's so many facets and dimensions of communicating that the project manager has a tough job to put all of these communications in context and be aware of all of these associated variables. Choosing the right medium, initiating feedback, knowing the right time to send that crucial message. Without a doubt, communicating is what project managers do the most. And that's why this topic of the communications management plan is number 8 on my hit list of things the project manager needs to do a great job. Let's dive into the discussion.
The next stage was inevitably to work on the much talked about WBS, Project Schedule and Cost Baseline. Cold Pincus unceremoniously declared that I had the responsibility of working on the schedule. In other words, it is now my duty to lead the development of a work breakdown structure, resource list, associated project costs, and a monster schedule while working with several other project team members who are already over-allocated in other projects without any sign of availability. I sent out invites for several meetings for the next few days and spent the rest of the afternoon researching the project and collaborating with all the subcontractors and vendors we would likely use on the project. It was a nice change, seeing them in the physical as opposed to just a hologram. It's amazing how the traditional way of communicating has made it so far in this day and age.
You've probably heard the saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. If you fail to plan communications, just forget it. Just forget. Because communications is by far one of the most important pieces on any project. We know projects fail, but projects fail in a massive way due to lack of communication. It's one of the #1 killers of projects, the failure to communicate in an effective manner, the failure to speak to other stakeholders, the failure of the project manager to realize that this is a core ingredient for project success. Follow me to the PMP guide. I want to show you something here really quick. Let's go to page 57. In the PMP guide. Actually, not 57, 53. Let's go there. It says at the bottom of this page, research shows that successful project managers consistently and effectively use certain essential skills. Research reveals, watch this, that the top 2% of project managers, as designated by their bosses and team members, distinguish themselves how? By demonstrating superior relationship and communication skills while displaying a PMA, a positive mental attitude. What can we deduce from page 53? We can deduce that communications is pivotal for project success, and not planning communications could lead to massive project failure. And that's why this is on my hit list of things to know really, really well for your PMP exam. Now, when I ask people, what is in the communications management plan? A lot of folks are not able to go into the detail. But do you know that the detail almost crippled a question that I faced on a professional exam? I couldn't believe the minutia I was seeing in this question. about the communications management plan. It went into deep detail. For that reason, I would advise you to study so you do not fall into the trap I did. Study with intentionality what I'm about to show you here on page 377. It says, the communications management plan is a component of the project management plan that describes how project communications will be planned, structured, implemented, and monitored for effectiveness. This is where you want to take heed. The plan contains the following. Let me show you a few weird things that most people would not imagine they would find in a communications management plan. Watch this. Second bullet from the bottom, flow charts. Flow charts? Flow charts of the information flow in the project. Now, think about it. If you were on the exam and someone said, flow charts for information flow on the project, and you had quality management plan and communications management plan, you might have been pulled towards the quality side because it's talking about flowcharts. But this exists in the communications management plan. Here's another example. Third bullet from the bottom, glossary of common terminology. Would you expect to see that here? Or if I said WBS dictionary as one of the options, would you have chosen that? You might have. A lot of our students do. But glossary of common terminology is here in the communications management plan. So for your test, you need to go through all of these bullets and understand what is in the communications management plan. Here's another example of what you may not expect to find here. Time frame and frequency for the distribution of required information and receipt of acknowledgement or response. The word time frame could throw certain people off. They may think schedule. And that is why, whether you are a native English speaker or not, I highly advise going through all of this stuff with a fine-tooth comb, because you just never know what could throw you off on your exam. If you're getting ready for the PMP exam and you're wondering how on earth you're going to do it, don't worry. Sign up for our project management training. This could be done self-study via Praizion.com, or those of you who love live training with a live instructor, going at a sensible pace, answering your questions, you need to go to the other website, pmsucceed.com, because all year round we offer training live online, and it's like no other training you've attended. Trust me, very engaging, but no holes as far as questions. We relish answering your questions. We delight in answering your questions. So if that sounds like you want to have some conversation for your preparation, you need to be on pmsucceed.com. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Have you ever heard of someone say, oh, that schedule, throw it up on the wall. Don't update it, leave it as an artifact, that's fine. Customer X said he wants to see that. Don't worry about updating the schedule. Those are true words from a past project. True story. Some project managers are as guilty as sin for not updating the schedule. Some project managers are guilty for not staying on top of the schedule. and using it to drive the project. Why waste the energy in creating a schedule when you're not going to use it to drive your project? This is a massive, massive, massive tool that, if used the right way, could work wonders. It really could take your project from doom to happiness, from doom to success. Not using your schedule will do the opposite. It'll just take your project from doom to gloom. That's why you want to use a schedule. But the schedule has no power if the PM doesn't use it. If the PM does use it well, my goodness. You got to use your schedule, project manager. This is definitely a fixture on these professional project management exams, not just in the world of the PMI, but outside of the world of the PMI. Everyone knows the value of a schedule. You gotta have a schedule. Go to page 217 of this book, your favorite book. What does it say? It says, the project schedule is an output of a schedule model. Now, when you hit that word schedule model, a lot of you tune out, but you shouldn't tune out. You should research, what does the PMI mean by schedule model? Now, I'll give you the summary. The schedule model is all of that data, all of that relative information regarding the schedule and associated variables. And that schedule model can be displayed in a number of ways. It could be manipulated in a number of ways with IT software, such as in MS Project or Primavera and the like. But let's read to see what exactly this schedule model is defined as in the PMBOK guide. All right. Follow me to the glossary. And we're going to page 722. It states, a representation of the plan for executing the project's activities, including durations, dependencies, and other planning information used to produce a project schedule, along with other scheduling artifacts. So when you hear the term schedule model, you need to be thinking about all of this information surrounding the schedule activities. And then it can be massaged and manipulated in different ways. You could show a representation of the schedule model as a Gantt chart. Well, it might just be a plain old schedule in tabular format. Or you could choose to show it as a network diagram, and so on. So it says the project schedule is an output of a schedule model that presents linked activities with planned dates, durations, milestones, and resources. This is key. At a minimum, you see, at a minimum, the project schedule includes a planned start date and planned finish date for each activity. Do you see that? And we could go on reading on and on, but there's a big question. What's the difference between the project schedule and the schedule baseline? Here's the answer. One is the law laid down by management, stamped and approved. That's the schedule baseline. The other, the project schedule, is the living, breathing schedule that is going to be updated throughout the project with actuals. And this does not need any permission to update. If you've enjoyed this and it has made sense to you and unlocked some understanding for your PMP exam, you definitely want to check out our website, www.praizion.com. Also go to www.pmsucceed.com. Live training online, pmsucceed.com. It's happening right now. Go there, check it out, sign up for our training. Let's see you there. If you want training and coaching for your teams on site in your firm, visit Praizion.com, go to the contact, and let us know what exactly you're looking for. Various organizations worldwide have used our training solutions. The FBI, NASA, Department of Transport, Department of Commerce, the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Army, the Army Corps of Engineers, and many, many more. So you're going to be in great hands. Go there and let's hear from you. All the best and bye for now. 2-in-1. If you are getting ready for the PMP exam, you should be able to correlate what these two are and how they are related. The cost baseline gives a solid expectation for performance cost-wise. The second thing listed, the project funding requirements, are the funding requirements for the project. These two are critical for success, especially on projects where the available funds needs to be well synchronized and timed so you don't run out of cash to get the deliverable done. So the cost baseline is talked about in section 7.3 on page 255 in none other than your favorite book, the PMBOK Guide. You can see figure 7-8 breaks down the cost baseline components. For your exam, you need to know this figure 7-8 really well and understand what it means to say project budget versus cost baseline. So on every project, management should think, what if things don't happen as we expect? Let's put aside some management reserve in case things don't go as planned. What happens when the management reserve is needed? You ask for permission, you ask for help. That management reserve is then taken out, whatever quantity you need, and it becomes part of your cost baseline when it is authorized. But in order to discover this, you're going to have to read deep. Let's go to page 254, the last section there. It says management reserves are added to the cost baseline. Someone say, what? Indeed. This is why you need to read the PMBOK Guide. There's a lot of stuff in here that is not in your average study guide. Seriously. Management reserves are added to the cost baseline to produce the project budget. As changes warranting the use of management reserve arise, the change control process is used to obtain approval. Watch this. To move the applicable management reserve funds into the cost baseline. So if you didn't take notice of that, please do now. You never know which questions you're going to face on your test. Last but not least, the project funding requirements are also talked about here. As an output, page 253, it says the expenditure of funds should be reconciled. No, not that. I beg your pardon. That is one of my favorites, but not that one. It's on page 256. I beg your pardon. Total funding requirements and periodic funding requirements are derived from the cost baseline. It then says the total funds required are those included in the cost baseline plus management reserves, if any. Funding requirements may include the sources of the funding. So all of that to say there's a lot of stuff in this book that needs to be mastered before you exam. Do yourself a favor, get into the details, make sure you know what you need to know. If you're wondering, how can I get more training like this? Go to Praizion.com. Also go to pmsucceed.com. Take a look at our training schedule and see when you can join one of our classes. If you want to study self-study mode, go to Praizion.com and check out our first panel on that screen. It's the self-study course of 35 contact hours. And that concludes the first 10 in a series of many regarding the power instruments of project management. Thank you for joining me, and I'll speak to you soon. Quality. Quality has various connotations to different entities. Before embarking fully on a project, it is important to understand the level of quality. First of all, in a statement of work or an RFP, and beyond that, getting into the project itself, you should have a similar understanding of quality to the customer, to the client. For that reason, the quality management plan is needed to put everyone on the same page as far as what quality is and how those quality standards will be achieved. Now, quality standards could be in-house, they could be regulatory, they could be from the perspective of the customer. And it's very important to align all these. Let's take a look at what the quality management plan is by opening up our PMBOK guide, 6th edition, and let's go to page 286. It states here, the quality management plan is a component of the project management plan that describes how applicable policies, procedures, and guidelines will be implemented to achieve quality objectives. It describes the activities and resources necessary for the project management team to achieve the quality objectives set for the project. The quality management plan may be formal or informal, detailed or broadly framed. Some organizations that are involved in quality do not have a quality management plan, and that surprises me. As a project manager, we need to begin to make a difference in how projects are run by introducing these valuable tools, such as the quality management plan. I once trained a company involved in building vessels, and while they had a quality process, they did not have a solid quality management plan from end to end. There was a piece in the plan that was missing. Can you guess which piece was missing? Typically, when you talk about quality, people immediately gravitate towards QC. But QC is not the only thing in quality. In quality, we have 3 processes. Broad categories of these are plan which quality standards you seek to achieve, then execute your plan to achieve this by carrying out processes to assure yourself that indeed the work is being done to those quality standards. And lastly, check the final product to ensure that indeed quality was achieved. The process that I've found to be missing oftentimes is the managed quality process or quality assurance, where you assure the customer that indeed quality standards are being met in the processes being carried out. This could be applied to any walk of life, any product, any project from any industry. It could be applied to an engineering project, a healthcare project, a food service delivery project. Anything you think of can ensure that the quality standards are being met before the final product, service, or result is delivered. In that way, you are carrying out prevention rather than kill. I look at QA as prevention, QC as some sort of cure. Now, they both work together. However, in the very beginning, you need that quality management plan. Now, a few more things in the PMBOK guide before we round up for today on page 286. It states the quality management plan may include quality standards to be used on the project, quality objectives of the project. Those quality objectives could be set forth in an RFP, some statement of work from the customer, quality roles and responsibilities, project deliverables and processes subject to quality review, quality control and quality management activities planned for the project. That is the QA I'm talking about. Those activities that assure customers before the end of the project, those need to be planned in. Quality tools that will be used for the project and major procedures relevant for the project, such as dealing with non-conformance, corrective action procedures, and continuous improvement procedures. Some companies may not refer to QA as QA or QC as QC as strictly as we do in the PMBOK guide, but whatever happens, it is important to ensure that quality is planned, quality is managed along the way by making sure we carry out activities to assure the stakeholders that indeed quality is being met, and lastly, to check the deliverables, be it 100% inspection, be it some random sampling, and things such as that. I hope this helps you. Now, for your exam, those of you who may be taking a professional exam from the PMI, be it the PMP or the CAPM, I would like to point out the last few sentences on page 286. That first paragraph in Quality Management Plan 8.1.3.1. It states, the quality management plan should be reviewed early in the project to ensure that decisions are based on accurate information. The benefits of this review can include a sharper focus on the project's value proposition, reductions in cost, and less frequent schedule overruns that are caused by rework. As you're working on your PMP or CAPM, realize that the benefits of each of these plans and processes are important for your success. One more page in the quality aspect is where the plan quality management process is talked about. Again, the key benefit of this process of putting together a quality management plan is that it provides guidance and direction on how quality will be managed and verified throughout the project. This process is performed once or at predefined points in the project. So what does this tell us? This tells us that quality management is not a one-time thing. It's not a one-day event. It's something that could happen all throughout the project to get to your optimum potential in quality management. Fitness for use, conformance to requirements, and customer satisfaction. That's what the project manager should be seeking to achieve with a team. If you're looking for awesome project management training, coaching for your team or yourself, go to Praizion.com and check out some of the offerings we have there. See you tomorrow. One of the major tasks of project personnel is to manage problems, misunderstandings, issues, if you will, on projects. But there's a broad classification of things that fall into the bucket of issues. We are going to be addressing what exactly the PMI refers to as issues. We're going to take a look at the issue log. Now, broadly speaking, the issue log is a log of misunderstandings, misalignments, areas of concern that need to be deliberated upon, or that the stakeholders need to be all aligned on the same plane with. So when you see issues, it's important that we don't see the issue log as a log of risks that have become issues, as it is in other professional schools of thought. For example, in the world of ITIL, when we talk about an issue, it is very different. And other project management sectors, it is very different. But when we talk about issues in this context, we're talking about human to human interaction, human to human understanding, and things that need to be put right that are not risks, because we already know that these things are out of alignment on the project. So follow me to the direct and manage project work process in this book, where this is talked about. Now, if you're taking a look at the future editions of the PMBOK guide, this topic is pretty much the same. The issue log is talked about in so many circles of management, it doesn't change very much. The PMI, however, like I said, have a different perspective to that of the world of ITIL. So let's jump straight into this. Go to direct and manage project work, outputs, page 96, and let's read what exactly the issue log is. It says, throughout the life cycle of a project, the project manager will normally face problems, gaps, inconsistencies, or conflicts that occur unexpectedly and that require some action. Note, we're talking about things that suddenly appear. These are different from risks that we see coming. What is a risk? A risk is an uncertain event that could impact your project positively or negatively. However, in the context of the PMI, we view a risk as an identified uncertain event. We refer casually to these other events that we may not have visibility of as unknowns. So there's a difference between an unknown versus a risk. There's no such thing as an unknown risk. Now, this may come as a surprise to some folks who have not gotten into the nitty-gritty of risk management and opportunities management. But I can tell you that the issue log is a log of things that have not been foreseen in the past, but things that have suddenly happened unexpectedly, as it's written here on page 96 of the PMBOK guide. Problems, gaps, inconsistencies, or conflicts that occur unexpectedly and that require some action, so they do not impact the project performance. So when we talk about an issue, we talk about something we need to take action on. It says the issue log is a project document where all the issues are recorded and tracked. Data on issues include issue type, who raised the issue and when, description, priority, who is assigned to the issue, target resolution date, status, and final solution. These are different parameters, different fields, if you will, in your issue log. Now, your issue log may be very different, but the bottom line is it should capture these things, especially the assignment of who is going to solve the issue. The target resolution date, the status, and final solution are also important. It then states the issue log will help the project manager effectively track and manage issues, ensuring that they are investigated and resolved. That is the key thing about issues. Risks, we could accept risks. Issues need resolution. That's why they're issues. The issue log is created for the first time as an output of this process, although issues may happen at any time during the project. The issue log is updated as a result of the monitoring and control activities throughout the project's lifecycle. Now, follow me again to one more place in the PMBOK guide where we get clarity on this topic. And this is going to the glossary. And we're going to the issue section in the glossary, page 709. It says, issue, a current condition. Note the word current. Current means happening now, right? Current condition or situation that may have an impact on the project objectives. Issue log, a document, project document, where information about issues is recorded and monitored. Now, for good measure, I would like to show you
One more thing to be aware of. In perspective, as you're studying for your exam, and this is the definition of a risk. Let's read page 720. It says, risk, an uncertain event. Do you see the difference between something that is currently happening, something that unexpectedly happened, versus an uncertain event or condition that, if it occurs, if is associated with risks, not issues. Issues are certain. They're happening now. Risks are uncertain. There's an if factor associated with them. If it occurs, has a positive or negative effect on one or more project objectives. So we've learned that issues are not risks. We've learned that the issue log is not a log of risks that have occurred. No, risks are tracked in the risk register. When they have occurred, they are also tracked and logged in the risk register, but the issue log is not for that. One more place of interest before we wrap up for today is in managed quality. Under managed quality, we have a 6-step blueprint from the PMI for how to solve challenges known as problems. You often hear issue and problem resolution lumped together. That is because the dig-sieve method talked about here is also useful in solving problems. So if you're faced with a problem or you want to intentionally solve a problem with your project team, use what is on page 295 as a guideline. Let's read problem solving. It says problem solving entails finding solutions for issues. So it's not enough to just log issues. We have to resolve issues or challenges. It can include gathering information, additional information, critical thinking, creative, quantitative, and or logical approaches. Effective and systematic problem solving is a fundamental element in quality assurance and quality improvement. Problems can arise as a result of the control quality process or from quality audits and be associated with a process or deliverable. Now it says using a structured problem-solving method will help eliminate the problem and develop a long-lasting solution. And that's what I'm getting at. Having a deliberate approach to solving these problems and resolving issues is priceless for the project manager. Now, this is called, in my world, the dig-sieve approach, D-I-G-C-I-V. What do these stand for? Let's examine them one by one. D, define the problem. 2, identify the root cause. 3, the G is for generate. With your team using critical thinking, thinking out of the box, develop solutions, plausible solutions. So you want to generate possible solutions for the problem. Now, the sieve, the CIV, the C is all about choosing the best solution. The I is about implementing the solution, and the V is for verifying that the solution indeed worked. Hence the acronym dig-sieve, D-I-G-C-I-V. Define the problem, identify using your Ishikawa, using your fishbone, if you call it that, identify the root cause. Remember, the cause, the problem, the effect, that model is also espoused in the world of risk. Cause, risk, effect. But in this context, we want to analyze the root cause for this problem and also the possible effect of what is happening now. Again, this is not risk management. This is issue resolution. This is problem solving. G, generate possible solutions. C, choose the best solution. I, implement that solution, and you also want to make sure that it worked. So the last one is V for verify solution effectiveness. This has been a rather long episode, but it's important as project managers that we resolve these issues. The issue log is great at logging the issues, but even greater is being able to intentionally, in a calculated way, solve issues, solve problems with our team. I hope this helps. Thank you for joining me. And remember, if you're looking for project management training, coaching for your team, for yourself as you prepare for the PMP exam, go to Praizion.com and sign up for our training. Now, speaking of the exam, I often drop a nugget or two for those preparing for the PMP exam. My nugget for today is know where the issue log originates from. It's from direct and managed project work. Direct and managed project work is loaded with key outputs. The issue log is just one of them. Go research the other two that are big from direct and managed project work. The other two, deliverables and WPD, also need attention for the exam. Thank you and see you tomorrow. Risk management is a big topic for project managers. It's so huge because it cuts across all the areas: scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, procurement. Think about it. Whatever the area, risk cuts across it. And that's why I often hear students say, this was hard on the exam. Risk was big. But even beyond the exam, outside of the exam, risk is a massive topic. We all know what happens if we don't plan effectively for how to manage risks. And that's why this is one of my favorite documents of project management, or to be PMBOK precise, let's call it a plan. One of my favorite subsidiary plans. Now, this is talked about extensively in the PMBOK guide. The coverage is massive. One of my friends, Dr. David Hilson, is someone who was very instrumental in putting this together. In fact, he was in charge of this chapter in the PMBOK guide. Very well covered, extremely detailed. I would encourage you to check out his channel. It's called the Risk Doctor channel. If you go to the Risk Doctor channel, your mind will be blown with how intricate risk could be when you address it from a professional perspective. We also have a curriculum that we developed to help RMPs in the making, professionals of risk management who are seeking to take the PMI's exam, the PMI-RMP. More about that on Praizion.com. But let's take a look at the risk management plan. This plan is massive. It could contain so many different things. The possibilities of what it could contain are summarized in the PMBOK guide. So let's go to page 405, and we're looking at the 6th edition. Bear in mind that there is also a standard for risk management, and that standard has got other details and takes on risk management. But let's take a look at this for now. So we're taking a look at one of the inputs, first of all, to planning risk management. And the point I'm trying to address here is risk management cuts across so many areas. And that's the relevance of the project management plan or whatever exists of it coming in here as an input. Let's read. It says, in planning project risk management, all approved subsidiary management plans should be taken into consideration in order to make the risk management plan consistent with them. So as you're coming out with your risk management plan, you need to consider any parts of scope, the scope baseline, schedule baseline, the scope management plan, the schedule management plan, the cost management plan, so on and so forth. Anything that exists in the project management plan should be considered. Now it says the methodology outlined in other project management plan components might influence the plan risk management process. Now, with that understood, let's take a look at what is in the risk management plan itself. So follow me to page 405. Let's take a look. It says, the risk management plan is a component of the project management plan that describes how risk management activities will be structured and performed. But what is in this plan? 1, risk strategy, overarching risk strategy. There's a difference between the strategy versus the methodology. The strategy is a high-level approach to risk in general. The methodology, which is a second bullet, defines the specific approaches, tools, data sources, and other minutiae that will be used to manage risks on the project. The third bullet is roles and responsibilities. Who will do what in terms of risk? The fourth is funding. Where do we get funding from? I've heard from the past that students say, Phil, we do not manage risks in a calculated fashion because we don't have the funds to do it. Now, while that's a bit blown out of proportion, there does need to be funding to perform activities related to project risk management. Timing. How frequent will these activities take place on the project? And the last bullet on page 405 addresses risk categories. The risk breakdown structure, which is a term Dr. David Hilson coined back in the early 2000s, is shown on page 406. Just like we have other breakdown structures, work breakdown structures, organizational breakdown structures, we also have a risk breakdown structure. The risk breakdown structure breaks down risks into categories. It states a common way to structure risk categories is with an RBS, which is a hierarchical representation of potential sources of risk. An RBS helps the project team consider the full range of sources from which individual project risks may arise. Let's turn the page over to 407. Stakeholder risk appetite. What do we mean by appetite? How much food are you willing to eat? How much food are you hungry to eat? What kind of appetites do you have? Link the appetite to hunger. In order to quantify or qualify hunger, you typically attribute it to a size of food. And then to qualify or quantify appetite, you link it to hunger for something. So when you think about risk appetite, you got to think about how hungry is the stakeholder for an opportunity. How hungry are you? How much risk are you willing to take on to pursue the opportunity? That's how you need to be thinking about that. It says the risk appetites of key stakeholders on the project are recorded in the risk management plan as they inform the details of the plan risk management process. In particular, stakeholder risk appetite should be expressed as measurable risk thresholds around each project objective. Watch this. These thresholds will determine the acceptable level of overall project risk exposure, and they are also used to inform the definitions of probabilities and impacts to be used when assessing and prioritizing individual project risks. In other words, the acceptable level of overall project risk exposure that a stakeholder is willing to take on to get fed, to pursue the opportunity, to be satisfied. So you got to link the appetite to the opportunity. Last bullet here says definitions of risk, probability, and impacts. This is big, and this is also a massive missing link on many projects, because a lot of project managers call a risk a 1 on a scale of 1 to 5, but they have not defined the 1 for the other stakeholders to understand what is a 1. And that's why on page 407, the example of definitions of probability and impacts is a great takeaway for every project manager that manages risks using a probability and impact matrix without definitions. We got to define these. Some firms are awesome at doing this, but others lack what a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the scale is, what those numbers really mean. So in this example on page 407, you can see what very high means. Very high in terms of probability means greater than 70%. Very high in terms of impact, looking at the schedule perspective, is greater than 6 months. Very high in terms of cost is greater than 5 million. So this is a method to follow when you're working on risks with your team. The next page, we have the probability and impact matrix, which takes those definitions, puts them into a matrix, and it's a rapid way for you to identify a risk score. The probability and impact matrix have probability ratings and an impact rating, and multiplied, these give you a risk score. All of this should be addressed in the risk management plan. So you can see why it is a massive document and it needs careful consideration by way of the possibilities. Now, this is not always as massive on every single project, but the possibilities are endless. Just remember that in your organization, the approach to risk may be very scaled down. But if you're working on a high visibility project where the stakes are high, you want to up the ante on your risk management approach. The last two bullets here are reporting formats. Those should be in the plan, and tracking how risk activities will be recorded and how risk processes will be audited. I hope this helps you frame an understanding of what exactly the risk management plan is. It's a plan that defines and guides your risk management approach. We look at the strategy, but we also get into the methodology. Thank you for joining me. Remember, visit Praizion.com, take a look at the curricula I told you about, and don't forget to check out the Risk Doctor channel. Talk to you tomorrow. Procurement Management Plan. The Procurement Management Plan is a plan that guides project managers, team members, anyone involved in the project about how procurement activities will be carried out. Now, this plan could be very helpful, very instrumental for project success. It's a plan that needs a lot of calculation and careful planning before producing. But when it is done, the payoff could be huge, especially when you're working with many different vendors, subcontractors, suppliers, whatever your organization may call them. I would like to encourage every project manager that is involved in procuring goods or services for their project to check out what the PMI has to say by actually reading about the procurement management plan. It's a very big document that could exist in massive procurement endeavors, but it can also be scaled down. That's the great thing about the PMI's PMBOK guide, in that this is not meant to be a cookie cutter prescriptive way of managing projects. You can scale up or down the enormity of these plans that exist here. Some of them look very big, but they can be scaled up or down, even beyond what is here. So if we go to 12.1, where this conversation is, and we go to the procurement management plan, you'll discover that a lot of what exists in this plan is business as usual. But sometimes business as usual does not evolve or turn out as usual. Sometimes we've got nightmares on projects, as I've heard as a trainer in many organizations. Some project managers say, Phil, that procurement, it was a disaster. I wish we had known. I wish we had done something different. Let's read what exactly these folks may be talking about. Page 475, it says, the procurement management plan contains the activities to be undertaken during the procurement process. It should document whether international competitive bidding, national competitive bidding, local bidding, and so on should be done. Take, for example, a company that was ignorant about procurement and how it should work in a particular geographic location and ended up employing the wrong demographic. They got penalized for not following
the regulatory proceedings for procurement in that area. They awarded the contract to the wrong entity by way of qualifications. So this is something that could make or break a brand, harm reputation. And that's why when you are involved in procurement, you want to make sure you do it right. Even within the United States, there's certain regulatory clauses that companies have to follow when assigning work to firms, contractors, subcontractors, and so on. Well, let's go a little bit further here on 475. It says, if the project is financed externally, the sources and availability of funding should be aligned with the procurement management plan and the project schedule. It then says a procurement management plan can include guidance for how the procurement will be coordinated, timetable of key procurement activities, procurement metrics used to manage the contract, stakeholder roles and responsibilities, constraints and assumptions that could affect the procurement, the legal jurisdiction, that's important, and currency in which payments will be made, determination of whether independent estimates will be used, and whether they are needed as evaluation criteria, risk management issues, including identifying requirements for performance bonds or insurance contracts to mitigate some form of project risk, and pre-qualified sellers to be used. But the talk about planning procurement goes beyond this. Planning procurement and putting this stuff into a procurement management plan could also involve the nature of payments, the nature of contracts, contract types. Those should also be factored in. Are we going to use a fixed price, cost reimbursable, a time and material, and specific to the construction industry? We need to ask ourselves, is this going to be a design build, a design bid build? Is it going to be a build, own, operate, transfer? What is it going to look like? In the services industry, you should also ask the question, what is it going to look like? Are we going to allow subcontracting? Are we going to allow people to employ other people to do the work? Or do we want just one company to be the company we relate with? All of these questions need to be answered in your procurement management plan. Now, typically, the procurement management activities in large companies are handled by a procurement department, but that's not to say a procurement management plan may not be needed for specific projects by the project manager and the team. I encourage every project manager to look into the procurement management plan and see the opportunities that exist, especially in companies where procurements may have gone bad in the past. Find out where you can better manage procurements and create a plan and be more intentional about it. On your exam, there's so much to talk about, but I'm going to have to summarize it really quick. I believe we've got a minute here. For your exam, I would recommend that you look at the differences between the procurement management plan and the procurement strategy. There are some elements of the procurement strategy I talked about, but those are a strategy. These are talked about on page 476. I talked about delivery methods. I talked about delivery methods in construction, delivery methods in contracting or consulting rather. These are talked about here. Contract payment types are also talked about on page 476. These, though they affect the planning of procurement, they are relegated to the category called procurement strategy. So you need to understand the difference between your procurement strategy and your procurement management plan. Moreover, you need to understand the delivery methods for professional services versus construction, and then you also need to understand your contract types. Procurement phases are also talked about here under procurement strategy. And then going into bid documents, you need to understand how these are different. There's a difference between your procurement strategy, your bid documents, such as RFPs, RFQs, RFIs, IFNs, and so on, and then the procurement statement of work. That is also a different piece of the puzzle. Now, the RFPs, RFQs, and the bid documents may contain the procurement statement of work, but it is often looked at as its own separate document because of what is in it. So while I don't want to make this a procurement free-for-all, I would encourage anyone who is getting ready for the exam to know the differences between these. And last but not least, page 471 and 472 need to be understood. I hope this helps you in your project management and in your PMP exam prep. Thank you for joining me. Remember, if you're looking for training or coaching to excel in your project management, visit www.praizion.com. Also, check out pmsucceed.com because every now and again we have live online instruction for the PMP exam where all questions are welcome. Thank you and talk to you tomorrow. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Project Management Instruments. And here's an example of a change request. Remember that the reason why we document these changes in change request forms is to help everyone understand what exactly the changes are, to catalog them, and to show some commitment to these change requests, because this could take a lot of money. Going through a change request form and analyzing the impact to scope, schedule, cost, and all these other parameters could take a lot of time. And for that reason, we want people to be fully committed to the change request and to be absolutely sure about what they're looking to change. We have alternative considerations, other change requirements, also the element of risk. Now, what the change control board, project manager, whoever is the approving authority should do is look through the change request and analyze it from all perspectives. Bear in mind that this change request should also be logged. There could also be a change request ID on the form, and this could be logged in a database. It could be logged as part of a change log. And as part of that change log, you want to make sure that every change request and its ultimate disposition is logged. And that's pretty much it for the change request form. Again, this is from a fictitious project my buddy Syed and I put together. Hope it helps you understand what a change request looks like and the thought process behind it, what it could be used for. As you prepare for the exam, if you are taking the exam, called the PMP exam or CAPM exam, just remember that corrective action, preventive action, and defect repair are pretty paramount when it comes to these change requests. We also could talk about updates, but in this form, what we captured is those three. We call it CAPADR, corrective action, preventive action, and defect repair. Hope that helps. See you in the next episode. Welcome to Project Management Instruments. We're taking a look at lessons learned. Now, when it comes to lessons learned, be aware that there are many ways you can collect these. Some people may collect lessons learned by using just text in a document, and some may use a table such as this. And you might actually go as far as categorizing what the area of the project is, what the problem was, or what the success was, and what the impact was, what recommendations are. So in other words, you're going to collect what worked, what didn't, how you overcame it, the lessons you learned pretty much. So in this illustration, we have in scope management, as a recent state law changed, now the project needs approval when using fabric on each product. The change for scope change and introduce new activity in the approval phase. Now remember, this is a backpack company. They design and build backpacks, and in this project, they're just learning state laws can impact what they do. The impact is fabrics were treated in the lab for resistance to wear and tearing. Moving forward, this practice should be followed. And remember, it's fictitious. So whatever you learn from the project, you want to catalog, talk about the impact, talk about the recommendation, and that's pretty much it. And that's what a change, a lessons learned, I beg your pardon, form could look like. The main purpose is to capture what is the problem, what was the impact, how did you overcome it, what are the recommendations, what went well, what didn't, and what should you do going forward. All right, here's another one from cost management. Some activity cost estimates were done by parametric estimates that didn't match with practical situations. And what was the impact? The impact was some activity in cost increments. Moving forward, other practices like 3-point estimates should be taken into account. And obviously, as a project manager, you know that 1-point estimates, single point estimates are never really that good. For that reason, use 3-point estimates. It's a simple lesson. All right, I hope that helps. See you in the next episode. Hello, my friends. Welcome to this very quick discussion about project management instruments. We're going to start off with the project charter. As you can see on the screen, we have an example of a project charter. Project charters should be used for a high level understanding of the project to put everyone on the same page. The project charter contains various sections, such as the purpose, a section where a case for the project may be made, project description, project and product requirements, project objectives, success criteria, high level scope, high level schedule, high level cost, high level quality. In essence, it's a document. It's just that, a document that authorizes the project. It gives the project manager the authority to apply resources to the project. It puts the project manager and stakeholders on the same page. We also have a key stakeholders list, as you can see here. Name, role, responsibility is all you need in a key stakeholder list. This will eventually be fleshed into a stakeholder register and identify stakeholders. So as you can see, the project charter contains mostly summary information, just enough to put everyone on the same page and to enable everyone know the direction of the project. But that is it. This is a fictitious project charter that my buddy and I created, and it's for a fictitious backpack project. That is really what a project charter looks like. I would advise every project manager to have one, develop one, just like the PMI advocates, because it will help you a whole lot to put everyone on the same page. I'll see you in the next episode. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Project Management Instruments. Today, we're taking a look at requirement documentation. As you can see here, this is a requirement document that is used to gather requirements. We have stakeholder name, the requirement itself. We could even go a step further and talk about priority and the acceptance criteria. Typically, in a requirement document, it will state how the requirement meets the business need. It could also state what exactly the acceptance criteria is. You find these talked about very heavily as one of the inputs to define scope. So the main purpose of requirement documentation is to capture those requirements that may not necessarily be for a product. They could be captured in a document such as this, and this could be used to track the requirements. It's that simple. In fact, this is actually a cut above the typical requirement document because you don't necessarily need to prioritize the requirements in a requirement documentation. That could be done elsewhere. When we talk about the other document we'll be reviewing soon, the requirement traceability matrix, that is one where you find a lot more finesse when it comes to requirements. But the requirement document at a high level pretty much states the requirement, how it meets the needs of the business, and doesn't really have as much fanfare as an RTM, requirement traceability matrix. A lot of times you might see requirements in big, bulky text documents like Word documents with several pages and just written in text form, not in columns like this. So just be aware of that. See you in the next episode. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Project Management Instruments. And today we're taking a look at the requirement traceability matrix. As you can see here, the requirement traceability matrix goes a step further, building on the data that we collected in the requirement document that we saw in a previous episode. In a requirement traceability matrix, extremely important is first the requirement, and then building on that, the origin or source of the requirement. Those are two key fields that you absolutely should be capturing. Now, on top of that, we have priority, category, WBS linkage, verification, validation. In other words, who's verifying it, who's validating it, and an ID for the requirement. We also have the auxiliary information about the PM, the date, and so on at the top. And that pretty much is a requirements traceability matrix. It helps you prioritize the requirements. It helps you track the requirements to their origin. And I mean, everything else is pretty much gravy. Once you're tracking requirements to their origin, you can prioritize, you can categorize them for whatever they are: technical requirements, business requirements, functional requirements, whatever it is, solution requirements. And then if you wanted to, you can track them back to a WBS element. You could even track them back to a use case and a test script. So case in point, projects I've worked on in the past, we would have additional columns that map back to a use case, columns that map back to a test script, and all documented with numbers, so that people know what exactly they need to be tested. And the column that reads validation pretty much means that you conducted the tests, you validated that indeed this did meet the requirements. And that's pretty much it for the RTM. This is an output of the collect requirements process. See you in the next episode. Hello, my friends. Welcome to PM Docs in a Minute. Today, we're taking a look at the RAM, Responsibility Assignment Matrix. The RAM is a very helpful document that helps map who is doing what. If you take a look at this, you can see we have conduct market research. We have an A that stands for accountable. In other words, passing the buck stops here with this person. In other words, this person is ultimately accountable. And the person here we see is the PM. Now, still taking a look at the PM, in the third responsibility there, we see forecast sales of new backpacks. And we see that is accountable to the PM. However, the doer is the researcher. R is for responsible, and R means the doer. Still on that line, we can see the designer is an I. That means we need to inform the designer, not that they're going to actually participate in the doing, but we copy them in there for informational purposes. Last but not least, we have a C. If we go down to this task here, compare product features with competitors, we need to consult with the PM on that. So RACI stands for Responsible, Accountable, Consult, and Inform. And the RACI chart is a type of RAM. So this is a RAM, but a specific type of RAM that uses this configuration is known as a RACI chart. Now, it is worth knowing that some RACI charts have defects or have issues with them. A RACI chart, which has more than one A for a task, for example, task 1, we have conduct market research. Assume we had an A right here. If we had an A right where the admin assistant is, that would be a problem. And the reason is because when you're constructing a RACI chart, there should only be one ultimately answerable individual. So having two A's, such as what I'm demonstrating, is a problem. And it shows that the RACI chart right here, where I've highlighted red, has issues. And that concludes our review of the RAM with specific mention to the RACI chart. See you in the next episode. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Project Management Docs in a Minute. And today we're taking a look at the risk management plan. Now, simply put, it's a plan for how to manage risks. It's a plan that decides or helps you decide on how to identify risks, analyze risks, and how to carry out every other process in risk management. It discusses the risk management procedure and approach, as you can see there, the risk identification, the risk prioritization and analysis, which happens in perform qualitative risk analysis, how you'll decide upon the risk responses, how you're going to monitor the risks, and the tools and techniques that you'll use to manage the risks. It could also contain information about things you have seen on previous projects and how you will attack those things on the current project. Again, it's like a blank template for risk management planning. When you are in
plan risk management, be aware that not only are you getting your plan for managing risks, you're also getting an overarching risk management strategy, so to speak. And your risk strategy, for example, could be if any risk is identified that could jeopardize our go live date, it will be communicated immediately or escalated immediately to senior management. That's a strategy. It's an overarching strategy. So your risk strategy is different from your risk management plan. Your risk strategy, which you could embed into the plan in some way, is more high level. Your risk management plan is going into the methods, the tools, how you're going to do various things on the project. So it's quite robust. In your risk management plan, you could have a format of the risk register discussed. You could have a format of your probability and impact matrix. Your scales for analyzing risk could also be defined there. A lot of stuff could exist in this document. And as you can see, my buddy and I, we just put this together to give you an idea of what this document could look like. So going down to your PMBOK guide, read, glean what exactly your risk management plan is in more detail. See you in the next episode. Hello, my friends, your buddy Phil here. Welcome to Project Management Instruments. In a few minutes, here is a team member performance assessment example. I know in the PMBOK guide, you hear about team performance assessments. Well, this should help you visualize it. What exactly is it? Well, you can see it's really more like a form where there's a performance assessment of a specific team member. You could do a team performance assessment for the entire team, or you could do it for individuals. In this case, we can see this has been done for individuals. The technical performance review as far as how this team member complied with scope, schedule, cost, quality. We also have leadership, and this could be an open-ended slate to add things such as communication, decision-making, problem-solving, conflict management. And based on what you know about the team member in question, you could go ahead and fill this, or you could ask them to self-score, and then you could score and compare and contrast, give comments, all sorts of possibilities. But TPA, we talk about it so much. Here's a face to the name, Team Performance Assessments. I'll see you in the next video. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Project Management Instruments. We're talking about the WBS. As you can see, this is a hierarchical breakdown of the project. Right there at the top, you can see something we call the root node. So design, produce, and transform various easy day hikes to multi-day treks, travel, and versatile backpacks. You see that at the root. Typically, that's a lot shorter. Now, when my buddy and I, Syed, created this, we pulled in a lot of data from Microsoft Project, hence the extremely long definition there. You could pretty much just say backpack project. And then under the highest level of backpack project, we have strategize, market opportunity, specification and features, design, closing. And those would be the level 2 items. And then at level 3, we have smaller buckets in conduct market research, determine target marketplace, forecast sale of new backpacks, and so on. And you just keep decomposing until you get to a sufficient level where you know management will be satisfied and where you know you can manage the project. WBS was created back in the late 50s, early 60s by NASA and the DoD. And since it was created, it had been used by so many companies across the world, healthcare, engineering, you name it. So this is one of the must-knows for the project manager. And especially on your PMP exam, it's one of the trio of the scope baseline. Scope baseline is your WBS dictionary, and your project scope statement. We'll take a look at the WBS dictionary in a future episode. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Project Management Instruments. Today, we're talking about the WBS dictionary. In a previous episode, we took a look at the WBS, and we found the WBS to be a hierarchical decomposition of the work on the project to lower levels. In this instrument, this is where we define each level of the work. So for example, work package ID of 1, this is a description of the work involved. who it is assigned to, assumptions and constraints, schedule milestones, resource requirements, and a cost estimate. So the intent is for anyone who wonders, what does this WBS element mean and how much is it likely to cost and what are the schedule milestones? You could go straight to the WBS dictionary and take a look. Now, this is just for a couple of elements. Bear in mind that if you had a 20,000 line long schedule, such as what I had on a previous project, you could indeed build a WBS dictionary for all of those WBS elements throughout that schedule. It could be a very daunting task. In fact, the poor guy who had this as a job had a huge binder he would carry around with every element defined. Big task. So on small projects, the WBS dictionary may not be that big, but on a big project, you can expect to find something of hundreds and thousands of pages long. So that's it for the WBS dictionary. See you in the next episode. Hello, my awesome friends, project managers. You know, you've read chapter 6 in the PMBOK guide, and in chapter 6, 6.1 to be precise, you see the output activity attributes. So I wanted to put a face to the name. This is what it looks like. I like a description given by one of my students. I said, what is activity attributes? He said, it's activity metadata. And how correct was he? It is really like metadata. If you're from that world, this will make a lot of sense to you. So you define activities in the process known as define activities. You get an activity list, but you also could go to the next level, which is creating activity attributes and also a milestone list. These are two of the things that you get from define activities, an activity list and activity attributes. So when you take a look at activity attributes, you see we've got various sub parameters here. We've got who is responsible for the task, which resources are assigned to the task, what is the predecessor, what is the successor, what is the activity type, what is the location that this task will take place at, what are the assumptions and constraints. You see, it's a boatload of stuff. However, now you've seen it, you'll never forget it, hopefully, at least not before your exam. So this, my friends, is activity attributes. It's a further description to expand upon the activity. I hope this helps you. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.